While fans eagerly wait for the Batman Part 2 to come out, we can only imagine what kind of cool and interesting storyline they're going to cook up to follow up on the previous film and the accompanying Penguin TV series, both of which I thought were stellar. But I did notice one thing in the internet discourse that I thought was interesting. Something people seem divided on is whether or not the Batman Part 2 or Part 3 should introduce Robin to the story. A lot of Batman fans, especially those who only really watch the movies, tend to feel like he's better off without Robin, often because there's some kind of inherent silliness to a non-superpowered, colorful kid sidekick fighting crime, and yeah, I guess there is. But Batman himself is supremely unrealistic. And I say this as someone whose favorite hero is Batman. My favorite movie is The Dark Knight. But any action movie where one guy can solo a whole room is inherently silly, even if fun to watch. As a seasoned Batman fan, I think Robin always has a place in the mythos, regardless of what the tone of the project is. So I'm gonna make the case for why Batman needs Robin. It's crazy to think it's even gotten to a point where people wonder about this at all. Batman debuted in 1939, Robin's first appearance in the comics was only a year later in 1940. When Bill Finger created Robin, the idea was to bring in younger readers, since apparently the early Batman stuff wasn't super successful, at least not compared to Superman. But Robin's existence did exactly what it was meant to do. Not only did it bring younger readers into Batman, but it also doubled the sales of the comics. If you asked anyone born before the current millennium to think of Batman, Robin would absolutely be one of the first things they thought of. The character is just as iconic as Batman himself. He was synonymous with Batman. That fame solidified in the 60s Adam West Batman show where the dynamic duo fought off villain after villain in comedic fashion in each and every episode. I'm sure you can imagine why Robin had the appeal that he did. Not everybody relates to the Dark Avenger type character, and Robin just adds a level of light to that story while also having a shared trauma with Batman in the sense that crime killed both their parents. It's also true that kids tend to like sidekick characters who feel a little more like them. Like you want to be Batman's best friend and trusted ally. Robin being a kid allows a younger audience member to put themselves in those shoes. Personally, when I was young, that was never my MO. I always wanted to be the main character, be Batman, Superman, or Luke Skywalker, or whoever. This is why my favorite version of Robin was actually Teen Titans. He's the main character, so it was only under that context that I wanted to be Robin. But I'm not most people apparently, and Batman having a kid sidekick just worked for a lot of kids in terms of relatability. So while I never wanted to be Robin, I think the character adds a lot to the Batman storyline. It certainly adds extra plot lines to it, like school life that wouldn't be there if you just followed an adult man for the entire thing. But if Robin adds such an appeal to the Batman mythos, what has changed to where there are fans who think the character doesn't belong alongside the Dark Knight on the big screen? Well, you gotta look at the last time it happened. Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, the last two installments in the original Batman film continuity. Well, at the time anyway. These two pairs are different enough that they're usually separated in discussion these days. But I'm going to treat them as the same series for the rest of the video since I believe that was the intention at the time. It made a lot of sense to bring Robin into the film series for the third entry, especially after a darker movie like Batman Returns, both in and out of universe. In our world, there was a harsh pushback against how not kid-friendly Batman Returns was, so WB intentionally wanted Batman Forever to be more kid-friendly. It was directed by the late Joel Schumacher instead of Tim Burton. It was colorful, neon, and featured a whole host of bat ass and bat nips that had angered adult male fans to this very day. And then Jim Carrey played an off-the-wall Riddler, and Robin was introduced. It had a lot of stuff going on. Forever was actually more of a success than Returns, so it achieved the goals it set out to achieve. But then the infamous franchise-killing sequel is the problem, Batman and Robin. I gave both of these movies harsh coverage in my videos on them from 5 years ago, but since then I've rewatched all the Batman movies more than once. And I feel like despite having issues, Batman Forever is at least trying to be about things. You know, it feels like a real movie, even if on the sillier side, and has a bit of an overcrowded plot with an arc for Bruce Wayne, a love interest for Batman, two different villains, and Robin's story. But I think it's an interesting movie with a lot of ideas worth discussing. Hashtag release the Schumacher cut. But on the other hand, Batman and Robin deserves no such credit. This movie is fucking awful, and honestly, it's not even as funny as I remember it being. Like, I've suggested hate watching this in groups before, and it's funny at first, but by the end you're just so bored and tired of it. You know, jokes don't land, the acting reeks of nobody wanting to be there, the whole thing is just one blatantly obvious toy commercial. The story is both paper thin and extremely convoluted with 3 villains, 3 heroes, and a love interest and a dying Alfred. It's just a dumpster fire of a movie. Everything that could have gone wrong did. Like Siskel and Ebert said, you watch this thing, despite all the colors and lights, you still feel bored. It got the reception it deserved and tanked the Batman film franchise for years. Into the 2000s, all superhero movies following Batman and Robin decided to go in the other direction, becoming more serious to avoid being possibly confused as another movie of that ilk. That includes the Batman franchise, as the next Batman iteration started in 2005 with Christopher Nolan's Batman Begins and the Dark Knight trilogy that it spawned. These movies rightfully focused on Batman himself and only Batman. There was never an official Robin appearance in these movies. It works for the universe it's in, because, Begins focused on just that, Batman and how he got started. The Dark Knight was obviously about Joker's reign of terror and what Batman was willing to do in response to such a crisis, and The Dark Knight Rises tried to focus on the aftermath of those choices and how Batman was able to spiritually rise above it and his past pain once and for all. This universe could have maybe had a sidekick if it kept going, but it didn't really need one. This Batman wasn't in active operation long enough for there to be room for it. But then in the DCEU world, this Batman had a Robin in the past, but he was killed by the Joker long ago, so he isn't in the movie, and we get the older, more grisly Batman of Batman v Superman and Justice League. There's things I like and dislike about Batfleck, but this take on Batman just continues the status quo of Robin being too silly to appear on the big screen. The Batman from 2022 focusing on a Year 2 Batman finding out how to be a hero, and not just a guy who beats up bad guys, because there's a difference. One he realizes at the end of the movie. There's a lot of interesting places this version of the character can go, but I think Robin, while maybe not being needed for part 2, I think he should definitely be in this series at some point, and belongs on screen alongside Batman because he's a fundamental part of the character's history and storyline. So I'm going to make the case for why Robin should be in these movies by simply stating what he adds to the story. The existence of Robin creates a challenge and an opportunity for change in Batman. It forces him into a role he's not naturally good at. In both Batman the Animated Series and the 2004 cartoon also called The Batman, after Bruce Wayne takes in Dick Grayson, he pursues the killer of Grayson's parents as Batman, because that's how his care for the boy manifests, until Alfred points out that what he needs is what Alfred was to Bruce, a new father figure to step up.
I'm doing this for him.
However, at the moment, he needs a friend. Isn't that what you need instead?
Bruce has to take an active role in this kid's life as a figure of support and positivity, rather than just devoting all his time to being Batman. I think this would be especially good in the Pattinson Batman story, because Bruce Wayne barely exists in the movie. He doesn't even really care about Bruce Wayne, and by his own admission, has just become Batman full-time. A storyline like this could be a part of this Batman's emergence as a positive figure in the Gotham community generally, not just for Dick Grayson. Bruce Wayne having to step up as a father and mentor allows him to grow beyond the menacing crusader he began his story as. When written well, his relationship with Robin should be as meaningful for him as it is for Robin, which translates to the audience getting more emotionally invested in the boy wonder.
Does the hurt ever go away?
I wish I could say yes. But it will get better in time. For you.
Another element of drama that Robin introduces to Batman's life is, through Batman's direct guidance, he can prevent someone from going down the same path as him. He fights crime obsessively as a response to not saving his parents. Being Robin gives Dick, and the other Robins for that matter, an outlet for their trauma without being consumed by it like Bruce Wayne.
Robin needed to help bring the men who murdered his family to justice.
So he could turn out like you?
So that he wouldn't.
But since this is, as I said, not a role that Batman is familiar with, it adds great drama if their relationship isn't perfect at the start. This is something Batman Forever was trying to tap into. That Dick wanted to kill Two-Face for killing his parents, but Bruce Wayne knows that won't work and won't help since he killed the Joker in the first Batman movie, who killed his parents in this universe. Batman Forever doesn't directly acknowledge the events of the previous movies much, but if you keep that in mind while watching, it does land pretty well, I'd say. The mentor role can also do wonders for an older Batman. In The Dark Knight Rises, I thought the relationship between Bruce Wayne and Detective Blake was well done. The movie kind of feels like a Joseph Gordon-Levitt promotional vehicle since Blake gets way more action in it than Batman, but still, Bruce meeting someone who feels the same way he has and has had some of the same experiences brings some fire back into Bruce's life, advising Blake on why he used a mask and what Batman was meant to be.
Batman could be anybody. That was the point.
Blake inspires Batman to come back and rise again and all that. And Bruce helps Blake become the best that he can be, even becoming a new Batman at the end of the movie. The part where they said his birth name was Robin was really ham-fisted, but I liked his role in the story otherwise. Having a sidekick reveals a softer side beneath Batman's gruff exterior, like at the end of the BTAS episode, Robin's Reckoning. He seemingly cuts Robin out of the mission to find Tony Zuko when he re-emerges because Batman is cold and mean with little justification.
But on this team, I call the shots.
But I've waited half my life!
Batman out.
But then when Robin shows up anyway, Batman reveals the real reason he did this was because of how scared he was of Robin getting killed.
I couldn't stand the thought that he might take you, too.
Batman can just be a poor communicator sometimes, and that leads to these incidents. In some iterations, it can be a little overdone, like the Arkham Batman is a bit too paranoid for my liking. It just makes the side characters like Robin feel kind of useless more often than not. But I like the idea of him being so scared for his friends and allies that he'll shut them out a little bit. Like when the flashback of Batman Beyond Return of the Joker shows the dangerous side of having a kid help you out with such a tough job. Bad things can happen, and those things have consequences, which makes for interesting drama. Being kind of gruff is a part of Batman's character, and you can show being a really sensitive and caring person while also allowing him to be badass. His being aggressive with those who hurt people he cares about are some of the best moments. And that's because, at his core, Batman is a fundamentally compassionate person. He's not the Punisher, a guy who fights crime without mercy. There's a place for characters like that, but Batman is not and should not be one of them. The original run of Batman the Animated Series showcased this the best. He feels bad for the enemies he faces who are themselves victims, like Mr. Freeze or Baby Doll or Clayface.
Do you think there's any hope?
Where there's love, there's hope, Commissioner. I saw what happened to your wife. I'm sorry. You can play those roles again, Hagen. Let me help you find a cure.
Don't run away. I know you're scared, confused. I can help you.
I know what it's like to try and rebuild a life. I had a bad day too, once.
Could you stay with me? I'm scared.
He sat with her until her time came. That's the Bruce Wayne I came to know over the years.
The best Batman takes are the kind of heroes who believe in second chances and redemption. It's why the Joker is such a great main villain for him, a man who believes in goodness to a fault being pitted against someone who believes the opposite in every sense of the word. My ultimate point being that I think Robin brings out the best in Batman. It makes him a better person in so many areas of his life, and thus Batman stories absolutely gain from Robin being included, which is why I think he belongs in as many continuities that can fit him. And I think the universe of the Batman is absolutely one of them. Maybe his design won't be super bright and colorful like Batman Forever, but thematically it would work pretty well. This Gotham is a total wreck, both from Riddler's floods and what happened in the Penguin show. It's creating new traumatized youth every day, like Vic and the Penguin, come to think of it. And Batman having a young partner in crime would be a nice contrast to that and helping bring out the best in Bruce Wayne when the city needs him the most, both in and out of costume. So, in conclusion, Robin is one of the best parts of the Batman mythos, always has been and always will be. I hope he does get added to the new movies. So, if you agree or disagree, let me know in the comments below. But that's about all the time we have for today. Hope people enjoyed the mini video. To close, I'll say what I always do. If you made it this far into the video, I thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.